Jai Hind, Jai Bharat. Welcome to Dev Talks. This is Aadi Achint. Thursday night, as promised, is Ukraine night, where we discuss what's happening in Ukraine. Of course, one of the foremost, and I'm going to say this very clearly, analyst on Ukraine is with me, Major General Prabdeep Singh, who's been giving us such precise information that, as a matter of fact, I have serious doubts whether both the sides are actually listening to him. Because this kind of stuff that we've discussed on this channel has been coming through. And guys, for today's show, whatever little sneak preview sir has given me, hold your horses. This is going to blow us apart. What is going to happen in this war in the ground? What is the geopolitic around it? Has Putin taken over the Black Sea? And many other little things that we will discuss. Firstly, sir, good evening and welcome to the show.
Good evening. Good to be back. As always, Thursdays is something which I look forward to talk about Ukraine. Since I do not talk on other issues, I stick to Ukraine. It's always very interesting to be back. So, what's happening? What's happening around Ukraine?
Tell
Big
us, sir.
things happening. Big things happening. We've got Odessa being bombed, missile attacks. We've had 3 nights of missiles, rockets, drones, everything being fired upon onto Odessa. The residents of I was listening to one of the videos posted by a lady from Odessa, and she was cursing the daylights as to why the Ukrainians had to go and bomb uh, the
Bridge.
bridge. So that kind of an anger is coming out of the people, local people. So we had the bombing of the bridge. As a result of that, we had the bombing of the uh, the entire all across. I would say right from Kiev down to Odessa, we had this massive missile retaliation. Then, of course, we had the cancellation of the the Black Sea grain initiative that was existing, which Russia has withdrawn, and with effect today, that is the Russian time. You know that any ship which is moving towards any of the ports is going to be considered as a suspect, and what action the Russians are going to take against these ships is unknown. So you have a whole lot happening. I
Mhm.
mean, this is huge stuff where the focus is now on Odessa. The focus is now on the Black Sea. At the same time, you have the entire front, which is activated right from north down to this, you know, east and to the south. You have the entire front being activated. Uh, the Ukrainians are now expecting an attack in the north because the Russians apparently, as per the Ukrainians, of course, the Russians wouldn't talk about it. As per the Ukrainians, about 100,000 troops, about 500 odd tanks, and 400 odd artillery pieces. These are all massed against. They are stationed in the north, and this in the region of Kupiansk, and they're looking in to go into Kharkiv.
Kharkiv.
And the Ukrainians are reacting to it. They're moving their troops towards the north. So this kind of a panic situation exists at the same time. Bakhmut remains in picture. The So does the area of Kherson, where the amphibious landings are still continuing and still getting battered. So all this is happening. What I've learned is that about in this entire duration since this offensive was launched, counter-offensive was launched by the Ukrainians, they've been able to gain about 253 square kilometers. That's about it. So 253 square kilometers all across. And interestingly, an equal amount has been taken by the Russians. So it's a very, yes. I mean, they've also progressed ahead. And so when you are looking at the landmass, the captured or captured by either side, it remains somewhat the same. Uh, However, the casualties on the Ukrainian side, as we all know, are many fold,
Massive.
7 to 8 times that of the Russians. The armament that is there, that has been fielded, a large amount has been destroyed. Uh, as was, I talked about it much earlier, many episodes back. We were talking about as to how would the Russians do it.
Hmm.
Now, the Ukrainians are caught in a dilemma. The dilemma is to move all their forces towards the east across the Dnieper River, or keep them behind. If they move the entire lot on towards the eastern part, eastern Ukraine, where the war is on, and they bring into battle all the reserves that they have, the dilemma is thereafter the Russians will go all out, destroy all the bridges, and trap them on this side. So they want to conserve their wherewithal. Uh, at the same time, they want to stop the Russians. So this is a kind of a dilemma which is taking place in the minds of the Ukrainians. Plus, of course, there is this new threat which is coming about, and this is towards uh, what's happening in Belarus.
Hmm.
Suddenly, we have Prigozhin welcoming his troops in Belarus. The video came out. He was in a tent. Then there's a video coming out and welcoming them, and of course now he's there, as they say, in Belarus. And what is suspected is that the Wagner forces, who are presently reportedly training the Belarusian army. So it's an interesting thing. The Wagner forces are now training the Belarusian army. And then there is this little talk of the Wagner forces going and being applied to capture the Suwałki Gap. Suwałki Gap is something that is very interesting. We will see a map soon and we'll talk about it. And what this gap is and what is the relevance of this gap is what is important. And why the Wagner forces are going to be talking about capturing this part of territory. Uh, is this is this something which has been let loose to confuse the daylights of everybody? While the motive remains something else, we shall see. Uh, the talk of tactical nuclear weapons in Belarus, the Wagner forces in Belarus. I mean, all this is not happening just for the sake of happening. There has to be a motive behind. There has to be a plan behind, and all this mutiny, so-called, etc., was not just carried out. Uh, and if it had been a true, a real mutiny or a real uprising or a real revolt or whatever you want to call it, the repercussions would have been much more. But here, as you see, nothing much is happening. It's the reverse. So we shall discuss all these issues. And then there is this secret meeting reportedly, which took place between the US diplomats as also the Russian foreign minister. This is also being spoken about, which have been denied, incidentally, by both. But then there's this news item which is making
Yeah.
waves. And what is the implication of that is what we will talk about today. So first, what I can do is we'll just show you a map of the Black Sea and understand the Black Sea. Just can you go to the Black Sea map, Adi?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. Now this is how the Black Sea is. Just discount the colors. The Crimean Peninsula not being with the Russians. This is an old map, but for the sake of explanation, what you need to see is that there are 6 countries, which are the literal countries which surround Black Sea and touch the Black Sea. That is, from the north we start. You have Ukraine, you have Romania, you have Bulgaria, you have Turkey, you have Georgia, and Russia. Right? Moldova doesn't. There's no access of Moldova onto the sea, nor is that of Greece. But Greece touches the Aegean Sea down below. So what you see again, I repeat, is Ukraine, Romania, Bulgaria, Turkey, Georgia, and the Russian and
Hmm.
Russia. On the north, you have the Sea of Azov. Then you have the Black Sea. Then you have the Aegean Sea down in the south west, and which connects to the Mediterranean. Now, I want I've put this map because one must understand as to what is the relevance of the Black Sea fleet here, and why, and how do these, why and how do these, how is this fleet maintained? What is this about choking of the entire
Green deal.
Black Sea?
Hmm.
So just try and it's very intriguing when you look at it like this, as to how the ships pass through,
Correct, sir.
how the vessels which are carrying grains pass through. Incidentally, as far as the grain initiative is concerned, once it was signed last year, that's around 22nd of July, I think it's around the same time last year, it was signed in Turkey. Ever since then, about 1,000 plus odd ships full of grains have already passed through it. So I just want to, in the next, and these two green lines that you see, these are the pipelines, by natural gas and oil pipelines which are there, which bypass Ukraine. You see this, the aim of these pipelines through the Black Sea that are straight from Russia right down to Turkey. These are with a view to bypass Ukraine. So these two pipelines exist. So we'll see another map. We'll go to the next one, please. This one just shows the connection, Black Sea, Aegean Sea, and the Mediterranean Sea. Just to try and understand this. Next. Yeah, this is very important. Now, you have the Black Sea, then you have the small Sea of Marmara, and then you have the Aegean Sea. From the Black Sea, the ships have to go through this strait called the Bosphorus Strait. From the Bosphorus Strait, they have to come to the Dardanelles Strait. And from there, they come onto the Aegean Sea and then into the Mediterranean. It sounds complicated, and it is. Now, as you see that it's Turkey, which is, he's the guardsman there. He's the one who's controlling these straits. He's controlling Turkey. He's the one. She controls Dardanelles, and she also controls the Bosphorus Straits. So all the ships passing through this are controlled by Turkey. All ships pertaining to the littoral states. Littoral states, I'm talking about the 6 states that I explained, 6 countries that I explained. Sorry, excuse me. So those ships are free to go. Any other, and especially military, the naval ships of any army, if they have to go through, they have to go through taking permission from Turkey, and the maximum amount of time that they can spend in the Black Sea is 21 days.
Acha. Okay.
And then if you're flying any other flag, the maximum, the tonnage of the ship can be 15,000 tons, and a maximum of an aggregate sum of 45,000 tons is what is permitted under a particular flag. So 21 days, 45,000, 15,000. These are the figures that exist, are laid down as far as this is concerned. So this is just the dynamics of Black Sea. What is the importance of relevance of Black Sea, and why the Russia maintains such a huge force over there? Russia, my friends, does not have a warm water port.
Port.
So this is the warm water port, and these are the areas from where the warm water ports are existing, and this is the route from Russia and also connected to the Central Asian republics. When you look at it, it's coming down into the Mediterranean, and it caters for Europe and Africa and everything. So these are the general dynamics that we need to understand. Turkey is in the NATO fold and has been smartly put under the NATO force by the West for this particular reason, so that they have a stronghold over the movement of the Black Sea fleet, Russian fleet which exists. So you just try and understand, can Russia antagonize Turkey? No. Can it antagonize Greece? No. So there is this interplay which is taking place. Turkey at the same time is a NATO, and it cannot antagonize NATO. It cannot, because it is touching Europe, it cannot antagonize Europe. So relationship of Turkey with EU, Turkey with NATO, and we know that is how Turkey also plays its card. That is why Turkey becomes an important player when it comes to, acts a little tough when it comes to, say, NATO membership, etc., etc., and can hold NATO and the West to a little bit of ransom whenever it feels like. In fact, it can hold the Russians to ransom. It can hold the Americans and the NATO and the EU to ransom because of its strategic location. So, having understood this, this is what I wanted to, kind of educate you all on this part. Now, let's come on to another aspect. We'll finish off with these maps, and I spoke about the Suwałki Gap. So I'll just show you another slide. Now, just try and understand this. What you see in the left corner is the Kaliningrad Oblast. Now, this is a pocket. This is a pocket which is independent and it's landlocked. It's Russian territory, but not connected to the Russian mainland. Interesting, isn't it? I'm not going to go to the history, but it exists like this. So down south, you have Poland. Down to the west, you have Lithuania, and absolute down south and towards the east, southeast is Belarus. And this corridor, this particular Suwałki corridor, is about 65 miles, about 100 kilometers, long. And this corridor has been requested by the Russians that this corridor, a route, you like when you make a house, you have a right of way, and you go to the court and you take a right of way. Look, I have a piece of land which is isolated. I need right of way, and the court grants you that. So similar kind of a right of way was sought, and that has not been granted over time, neither by Lithuania or by Poland. So the relevance of this is that Belarus, if they connect, they are able to connect Belarus to the Russian territory, that is Kaliningrad. They will have access to it, and then it has got further implications. We'll talk about it. Now, who's going to do this?
Interesting question, sir. Because you'll be attacking a NATO country.
Yes. So, but if there is a ragtag force called Wagner, which I have already disowned, which no longer belongs to me, he's mutinied. I've shunted him out of the country. I've declared it no more mine, baby. You get lost and station yourself wherever you want to. Belarus says you come and stay with me. So, whom does he belong to? 100 kilometers, one fine day you wake up and then you say that, okay, oh shit, man, these guys have already gone in and captured this area. And who are they? They're Wagner forces. Where are they from? They were originally
Belarus.
Russian. Today they're a Belarusian. And so it is not Russia which has attacked or captured any territory. That is one aspect. And the Polish, incidentally, Poland is quite worried about it, and there are talks about this trick being played by the Wagner forces. So, the presence of Wagner forces in this area has already got Poland and Lithuania worried, and we were talking about the two of them getting together. That's one. Will Russia risk this?
That's the thing, sir. Because Belarus is the Russian ally, so anybody attacking NATO will, this, that, and the other.
Yeah. And now I want to go back to what we discussed last time. Poland and Lithuania was talking about that we are going to enter the war on
Without
our
NATO.
own, without NATO. So you start connecting the dots as to without being part of NATO. And here, if they do something, the Wagner forces are very much, entitled to do what they plan to do, or if they intend to do. Well, all this has been spoken about not by Russia, not by the Wagner forces, not by Belarus, but by Poland and the West. They're talking about this. They fear that this may be a target. As far as I am concerned, I think that this still remains a part of the greater deception. So Polish troops are now concentrating here. Poland is now focused over this gap, trying to counter the Wagner forces if they come about. While all this is happening, the Wagner forces could just turn around and start marching towards Kyiv when the time arises. So the point remains that the Wagner forces have been so positioned.
They can go anywhere they want.
Yeah. And to keep Belarus safe, don't mess with Belarus. I've got tactical nuclear weapons there.
Now it kind of fits in.
So you don't mess around with Belarus. You got tactical nuclear weapons, they're my weapons, you don't screw around with them. You got it? So Belarus has been given a security guarantee. Wagner forces are loose. They could swing northwards, they could swing southwards, they could cause any amount of trouble if they want to. So that's where this one lies. Yeah. Let's proceed.
Amazing. Now it all ties up together. Each one of those loose ends. I used to always wonder, what does Belarus needs nuclear weapons for?
Yeah.
So he's given him his own security guarantee.
Yes.
If you stand alone, beta koi baat nahi, to kar lena. No, my God, this is amazing.
So this is how it's playing out. Then, of course, usage of cluster bombs is taking place. It's not having many material effect. Now, let me just switch to Odessa and what this war will be incomplete from the Russian side
unless Odessa
if Odessa and all the ports of Black Sea are not in their control, not brought under their control. Right? Now, earlier it was not meant to be like this, but then this is a retaliation as a post effect of what the attack which happened on the what bridge is called, the Kerch Bridge. Yeah. So Kerch Bridge. So the attack on the Kerch Bridge and the reaction to that has been massive. But is it directly connected? I do not think so, because Odessa was always in the radar. It was always meant to be bombed. It was always meant to be I'm not going. I'm not going to renew the. I'm not going to renew the deal, the grain deal initiative, and I'm going to bomb the daylights of all the ports which are around there. I'm going to destroy all infrastructure. I'm going to take on every bit of the military establishment which is existing in that particular area.
Khatam.
Now,
I mean, defang it completely.
yes. Now the only thing that is this saving the Ukrainians as of now is that this entire coastline is heavily mined. The sea coast, the sea has been mined, and that is what is keeping the Russian ships away by about, uh, I'm told, about 100 kilometers. So it is so badly mined. That is what we have to see, and how this entire thing progresses from the seaside is something that we will see subsequently. And as
Sir.
I know of it, there are about 13 odd ships, naval ships, which are there, Russian ships, which are part of the Black Sea fleet, which are there in the various Crimean ports, Sevastopol and all. And there are about 2 or 3 submarines also which are there. And a large number, about 25,000 troops are there in Crimea. So all this exists. So how effective and how do they manage to get hold of this
That's a
territory?
big thing. Hmm.
That is something which we will have to see. And in my opinion, these kind of things will be supported from the sea, and you will have an airborne operation
Assault.
being carried out
Hmm.
to capture these particular areas. As of today, as I read, there are a large number of U.S. strategic reconnaissance means, or the Western means, which are flying over the Black Sea, and we should be expecting a lot of damage being done to Crimea uh, in the coming few hours, if I may just put it.
They've
Uh,
already been one attack at the ammunition
yeah,
depot or something.
there's one attack, but as of today, what I come to know, that large number of these what do you call strategic reconnaissance means have been deployed, and large number of drones are being high altitude drones, they are being flown over the Black Sea. So something major is going to come about. A large amount of destruction or retaliation would be carried out. Now, would that be carried out with the Ukrainians, or that be carried out by the other forces? Is something that we will need to observe and see.
Front face
Yeah.
will be Ukraine, sir, obviously.
Yes. And the other news, of course, is that there's this BRIC summit which is there in South Africa, and there was a lot of debate whether President Putin would be attending that or not. That has been denied by Russia. He says he'll not be attending. He'll be there on video mode, and Sergei Lavrov, the foreign minister, he's the one who would be attending this meet. So these kind of developments have taken place. Yes.
Let's talk Kharkiv, sir. What's happening there? I mean, this is seems like a mini front opening up right there for the Ukrainians, because that entire front, I think the Russians left last September, October when they went in for that counter offensive. And that was the only counter offensive I think the Ukrainians were successful at. And they did drive back the Russians from almost 6, 7 cities, 6, 7 towns, villages, cities. I mean, I'm not too sure of the definition when it comes to Ukraine. But the just sheer factor that the West is announcing 100,000 troops, 500 tanks, this, that, they were all massed up over there. Seems like a decent force to surround a city, sir. Not storm it, but surround it.
You see, this was bound to happen. This is we discussed this earlier. Now, as far as the Ukrainians are concerned, they were focusing on captured areas,
So,
and they're looking at. I always maintain this. The Russians went on the defensive. The Russians went on the defensive. The Ukrainians, emboldened by whatever equipment and the money that they were provided, and the moral support that they got from the West and the NATO countries. They launched this counteroffensive. We know that the counteroffensive is going nowhere. We also know that most of the air defense resources have been exhausted, badly exhausted.
I mean, Odessa was a clean attack. There was no air defense, nothing. Just tuck, tuck,
Yeah.
tuck, tuck in.
So the Russians also following a very interesting modus operandi. What they're doing is they send in the drones, all the air defense takes off, right? And after a pause, they
Then the
let
missiles come.
loose the missile attack. And the moment the missiles have been, missiles have gone, they have a short pause, and then they launch another drone attack. So this kind of a thing, they've also, after all, mastered the art of evading the air defense. And air defense resources are very far and few as far as Ukraine is concerned. A lot of it has been used. The ammo is not available. The missiles are not available. And many radars have been hit. A lot of ammunition dumps have been hit. So a stage has come for Russia today to start thinking in terms of going on an offensive, which it is. So most of the troops are engaged in the counteroffensive. These guys have now seen that Ukrainians do not have much force left, and out of the 300,000, they are going to be utilizing the buildup is exactly, if I may say, it's about 100,000 troops, 900 tanks, not 500 tanks, 900 tanks, 555 artillery systems, and 370 rocket systems. So that's the figure that I get from open sources that is presently deployed there, and they say that this is an equivalent amount of troops which were deployed when Russia invaded when the
Phase one.
Soviet Afghanistan.
Oh,
Yeah. So it's an equivalent of that troops that are already been, they're massed against this Kharkiv direction. And let's see how they get stopped by the Ukrainians and how much of force do they have, how much of capability is left, war waging capability is left with the Ukrainians to counter such kind of an offensive. You see, these are offensive operations. When you mass so much of troops and you head in a particular direction, this pinpricking all across the front, trying to capture a few pieces, I do not know. I'm very, very disappointed with all the people who have guided the Ukrainian army. You see, the tragedy of the whole thing is that the NATO forces or the Americans, when it comes to land warfare, they have been engaged in these kind of skirmish kind of actions in Afghanistan, Iraq, and all that. They've never had to really wage a land
war.
war as such over land, and they kind of not graduated beyond these small team operations. Now it is sad when you see that the Ukrainians launched an attack and there were 2 tanks and 4 Bradley vehicles which were involved in the attack. And come on, give me a break. So, this is not how you launch counteroffensives, and this is not how you waste and wither away all your forces. If you wanted to go in directly and wanted to, get to Crimea, all the wherewithal should have been put right there. A very, very decisive punch made, and the main forces should have gone through, and it should have been adequately supported with artillery and the amount of tanks that they had got, and the artillery ammunition and the air defense and all that. None of them happened. They withered it away, and net result is, I think, nix. And whosoever were the advisors, I'm afraid they do not know how to fight a war. They may have experience, they may be experienced as far as battlefield is concerned, but I'm sorry to say they really do not know what warfare is all about. They're looking at small team operations, they're looking at guerrilla warfare, they're looking at this is not counterinsurgency or counterterrorism. This is a proper war, and these are not the ways to fight a war. Now, what you will see and witness when an offensive is launched by the Russians,
That
you
is a
will
war.
you will see the speed of that operation, and you will see the speed of that operation, which will be in which all components of a battle group, of a not a battle group. Group is a very small thing. Of an entire offensive corps will be deployed, and you will see the speed of it. And trust me, the Ukrainians lack the wherewithal to stop that kind of a force. And you have 900 tanks positioned there, and out of that, even 200 tanks in 200 tanks is about how many? Four, 5, 6 regiments and armor division equivalent going through. That is the kind of a punch that will be made through the front line and gone ahead. And they haven't made defenses there which can hold such kind of a force.
Mm-hmm.
So I do not know whether the Ukrainians have the wherewithal. I have my doubts today as to what to have, and nobody is going to come to their rescue.
Mm-hmm.
Let me just tell you that also.
I think
Nobody, no country is going to come to the Ukraine's rescue. They're already showing signs of disgust and despair and tired of the war, etc., etc. So who's interested? The Russians interested. Russia's interested in capturing maximum territory. You're talking about talks. You're talking about peace talks. Obviously, that if the smartest thing to do is throw in the towel right now.
yeah, save whatever's left of Ukraine.
Yes. If you don't throw in the towel now, well,
There will
you've
be
lost a
nothing left.
large chunk. And that is why you have, I haven't found and seen any statement by President Zelensky ever since he's returned from Vilnius. He has not been making any kind of very courageous statements that he was making earlier.
What daily uske wo jo rants are on, but nothing of
Yeah, so there's nothing worthwhile coming about from there, because I think it's a hopeless situation they've put themselves into. And right time to throw in the towel. And of course, there is a lot of talk that one of the options that is likely to be given to Russia is, we'll give you 20% of Ukraine plus Crimea, and rest of Ukraine will join NATO. Which the Russians are not going to agree at this
not gonna
particular
take.
stage. They've been humiliated and called names much beyond their. I mean, after all, they also have a pride and ego as a nation, and they're not going to listen. They will do what they want to do, achieve their aims, and then thereafter think about it.
I have a
Yep.
question, sir. Politics. Now, that's the game which is going to play out. I mean, when you look at a broken down Ukraine, we've just spoken about Polish and Lithuanian dreams. In the south, you got Romanians standing there who own a certain land. You got the Hungarians who own the Transcarpathia region. This is going to be a rout. So what happens
Yes.
to if I mean, just this is one part. Second part of it, what happens to NATO if Poland attacks there and he says, no, I want to attack, I'll leave NATO, and either he has to leave NATO. What happens to the organization? It becomes redundant.
So NATO, as it is. I mean, you are NATO, fine. You've been strengthened beyond what you were. You were a defunct organization about a year and a half back,
Yeah.
and now you've been revived by the Americans because the American interest in on European mainland, and I've always been talking about that. So, and fortunately, my assessment is coming out true because others are also talking the same. They're also talking about that it's the Americans who have wanted a foothold, and that is what the aim is, to be on the European soil. Now, so much of money having gone in, so much of effort having gone in, and what is the result? The result will be a fractured, bifurcated, stroke trifurcated Ukraine. That's about it. So, actually, as it is panning out, it's going to be a major defeat for the West in all those countries who are part of the support to this for this Ukraine. I think that it's going to be a big stigma attached to such a huge force that they could not, if not what do you call, maintain status. They were not able to even maintain status quo. I think in my opinion, the major misconception has been that the Russians were routed in the initial stages. They thought, and they were emboldened, that Ukraine is so bloody tough that they threw them out. And no, those were strategic retreats. They were not. They were not. The Russians did not come about, and they did not. Yes, they lost a lot of men. They lost a lot of equipment. No denying that. But then they found they had gone wrong, so they made a retreat, and they retreated beyond the lines where they thought they could hold defenses. The Ukrainians and the
Makes
West made
sense.
a big war about it, in that the might of the Ukrainians and the Russians lack leadership, and Russians lack this, and uh,
That is a very weird narrative, sir. Because at
so
one
that.
time you say this, on the second time you say Putin wants to recreate the Soviet Union.
Hmm.
I mean,
So
pick one.
this unfortunately, this narrative which was built up because of whatever happened on ground. I mean, it was there on ground, so I do not blame the people who were building up this narrative also. But I think that's gone. The reading's gone wrong.
Yeah.
They thought they were going to be able to push the Russians back very fast, and Crimea was like within reach. Uh, Not happening.
Let me ask you this, sir. This was a narrative. I'm sure the planners knew better, or did they fall for their own trap? Because which
No, no.
brings me to the majorest question: what was Ukraine trained in? Combined arms warfare or counterinsurgency operations to fight a militia?
No, you see, if you've seen the videos of these captured Ukrainians, which the Russian channels have put up, it's very clear. They were taught basic, war fighting tactics. I think section battle drills and platoon battle drills, and that's about it. Most of it was brainwashing, and most of it was in a way radicalizing the Ukrainians against the Russians.
Hmm.
So it's more of playing with the psyche than actually training these soldiers. So the training has not been effective. In any case, in about 2-3 months, you can't produce a soldier. Soldiers need many years. A basic training of a soldier is about 10 months. What are we talking about? And then 10 months is just the very basic training where he just becomes a soldier from a recruit. And then thereafter, it takes 3 to 4 years for him to actually get it trained and understand the art of war fighting. So I think they lacked training. They lacked the basic essence of how to constitute a force for a counter-offensive. I mean, counter-offensive is a big word. These are not counter-offensive. These are bloody pinpricks. These are attacks.
Counter pins.
Attacks at section platoon level.
Yeah.
At a very, very minuscule tactical level. So that's how effective are they going to be?
Absolutely. So my last question, Chota sa.
Yeah.
Next Thursday se pehle, what's going to happen, sir? Will we see a big boom from the Russians, or will we kind of see more attacks on Crimea, see more grinding assault somewhere here and there? Will we see something like that? Because the ground seems to be hard right now. This is the hardest you will get apart from the winters.
You see, this coming week, I don't think much is going to happen other than.
I mean, week is in sense probably in the next
all right. So
2-3 weeks sort of.
Yeah, let's see as to what's going to happen before the winter sets in. Before the winter sets in, if whatever the counteroffensive of the Ukrainians has to achieve, if they can achieve something, well and good. If they can't, well, they will be
Back
where
off.
they are. Right? So the winter sets in. The second corollary to that is the Russians, whatever they gain now, is going to freeze when the winter comes. So if they have to consolidate, if this offensive in the north has to go through, then it must get launched within the next 10 to 15 days, or maybe earlier, depending on the level of preparation, which I'm not aware of. And it has to play out soon for them to reach maximum, to capture maximum territory by the end of autumn and the beginning of
winter, so that they can dig in and sit down after that.
Yeah, so that's what the aim would be. So if I were to do it, and I was looking at September, end of September, by which I should have gained maximum territory, dug in, so that I can hold on to what I have captured and keep waiting. If something is going to come about, I should be prepared. That's what they did. The entire winters they prepared themselves and prepared the defenses. So they worked hard.
That's what came to my mind, sir. That's what exactly came to my mind. But that's the reason why I asked you that 1 week sort of a timeline, because whatever needs to be done, he has to start it before August sets in.
Yeah.
So if he's planning a big offensive, if he's got a totally different plan, I don't know. I mean,
you see, you've got August and September, and maybe mid of October. And we are talking upper reaches, and you're talking, it's not India, it's the northern part of the hemisphere. So that's where when the winters are going to set in, and winters are going to set in soon, and the snow is going to fall, and all that's going to happen.
Yeah.
So that's my take. What will happen as far as the the seaside is concerned, or the ports are concerned, they're going to get battered nice and proper. They'll make sure that there are no berthing capabilities, and they're reduced to non-operational ports. As far as the grain deal is concerned, they say that some 30 odd metric tons or whatever of grain is still existing over there, and that's what is spoken about. 30 metric tons, I think so. That's the figure, but that's hardly any figure. Now, if that is what is going to be gained over there, it has to be moved out. I have a very weird kind of I want to ask anybody and everybody, there's war going on in Ukraine. Where is the grain coming out from? Who's tilling the land?
They are talking about some 6 or 8 million tons this time also. I'm like, yeah, really, sure.
Million tons. Sorry, 30 million tons of this thing. But I'm just asking plain and simple. From where? Where are the men folk? Are they tilling land or are they fighting? This kind of thing is intriguing me at the moment.
Yeah.
So I'm told that there are in the silos there are large 30 odd million tons of grain is still there, but this is from the previous years. So nothing more is going to come out of this area. And
Yeah, with the kind of
as far as Russia is concerned, Russia is going to move out its whatever it has to export, it'll export from elsewhere. If we can't, it'll follow the longer route. It'll come from the
yeah.
northern sea route. It's already supplying. They started following the northern sea route to China, right? And of course, you know what is happening, that these countries, which are their neighboring countries of Ukraine, have refused to allow that Ukrainian grain to be dumped into uh, their countries. And
Just
they're not
cheaper.
accepting it because it's going to be cheaper and they're going to kind of upset their economy.
Yeah.
So let's see. Yeah.
Before I get on to the questions, ladies and gentlemen watching, we've got 550 plus people watching right now. And how many likes do we have? Yeah, 151. Now that's not good, guys. We need to get 200 immediately. Yeah, come on. That much we can do, because at the end of it, this kind of analysis, show me it coming out from a Russian mouth as well. It's not going to happen. Let me just say that, because we are talking about something which is played out. We've already shown how stuff has been playing out in this war before, and how stuff will happen, and pretty much the same thing has actually taken place. Her analysis has been smack bang on to target, so that's something which is really really admirable. 190 and counting, guys. We can cross 200 and probably even 300 if you guys are lucky enough. You guys are graceful enough. So, guys, let's get into your questions. Of course, as I said, like, most importantly, helps to reach a larger audience. Our last video with Ukraine has seemed to generate a little interest, because this war has not gotten much interest within India. Last one touched about 16 or 17,000 views. Let's make sure this one crosses that, and more people should be interested in watching this, because let me say this very clearly, this war is going to change the world. So, like, subscribe, bell icons if you want to get notifications. You can contribute towards dev talks. The QR code is up there, or send us a super sticker or a super chat, which is what Murugan you have done. Thank you so much. So, if we assume a equal number of personnel, which country boasts of the best trained army in the world? Any koi shak?
Yeah. We're not too bad. You should be proud of your own country, I guess. We are not too bad at all.
I said koi shak, sir.
No. So yeah, we are not too bad. You see, our strength lies. Our strength lies in the men that we have. We've got very very hardy troops, and our troops are not the air conditioned soldiers. They're not the chocolate soldiers. We've got hardy troops, and we've got brain and brawn together, and we've got very mature leadership, right? And we've got a training structure which is solid.
So,
So whatever you may hear of, and there are always critiques everywhere, and you find people condemning and things like that. But let me just assure you that your army is pretty good.
Jansa, where are you getting so much information from?
That's what strategic intelligence is all about, my friend. You read, and then you make your opinions. Nobody is giving me this information.
So, MK Sundaram Saab says, I'm surprised Ukraine still has enough soldiers to attack and defend from multiple axes.
Yeah, but they do not have actually. They're losing a lot of lives. There are a lot of foreign mercenaries who've come in, who are fighting alongside, and unfortunately for Ukraine, they are also now uh, leaving the battlefield.
Yeah,
You will find some videos which shows all these guys who've come in, the foreign legion soldiers who've come
going
in to
back.
fight. They're all going back again. And what are they saying? It's hell in the front. All of them is saying it's hell in the front. War is hell. War is meant to be hell. But unfortunately, all these soldiers have served in, as I said, in small team operations in Iraq and Afghanistan, where there was hardly any opposition and where they were the ones who were ruling supreme, and they thought they could go and fight. So the foreigners are going back. Ukraine is, uh, again, I'm reiterating, they are picking up any able bodied person from the street and making him fight. How can you do that? So, what your surprise is, your surprise is going to be short lived. Sooner or later, they're going to be left without any manpower, and they will only have equipment from the West.
Akshay says, Akshay says, sir, aren't the Russian people tired of how long this is taking? Russian military superpower grows weak each day by day, fighting their own brothers.
Yeah, of course, the fatigue does set in, and I'm sure the fatigue is also setting in on the Russian side and amongst the Russian public. But then, if you go back into history, the Russians are pretty much used to long wars. They're pretty hardy. They're also, what you said, they're fighting their own brothers. After all, the Ukrainians also fought along with them. And Ukraine was a major, one of the key, you know, part of the USSR, and with a lot of resources and with a lot of military industrial complex. 30% of the military industrial complex was existing there. There were nuclear weapons there. All that, they were all Russians. So this is the irony of the whole war. The two brothers have been made to fight because of somebody else's interest. This is a typical case
So,
of making two brothers fight. Yeah.
Ishan, thanks so much for your contribution. He says, sir, do you see Ukraine becoming a landlocked nation in the long-term future?
I see it happening in the short term future.
Okay.
And short term is in about a year
Terrible. I
max.
mean, I'm laughing, but it's terrible. The human cost is just terrible.
And that's what the aim is. That's what the one of the aim is. Yeah.
So Tejas says, Jain, General Bahel sir, Turkey being NATO, why isn't Turkey not yet blocked the Bosphorus Strait for Russia? Doesn't the Montreal Convention give this right to Turkey?
Absolutely. The Montreal Convention 1920, I guess,
Yes,
very
sir.
much gives this right to Turkey to block it if it feels like. But then that's where it is. That's where diplomacy is, and that's where Russian diplomacy comes about. I think it's got to do with support in Syria and things like that. So it's connected. There are a number of things that get connected as to why Turkey is not doing what you just said. Because if they want to do, they can immediately do that. And Turkey would not want to get into a mess.
Yeah.
You see the oil pipeline going through it, the trade routes, etc. After all, a lot of trade is happening between Russia and Turkey through Turkey. So there's economic reasons and also strategic reasons. As I mentioned,
Batraji,
Turkey is playing
Batraji is asking, sir, is Turkey's impression of that Pakistan is Hamari location important hai?
very well put. Absolutely, it is important, and that's how Turkey acts arrogant. Erdogan acts arrogant. Why? Because of all these reasons. That's what it is all about. When you know that strategically you are in a position to strangle somebody, and you will not do it for. And it's also got to do with Russia supplying a lot of weapons and equipment to Turkey, including aircraft and things like that.
But Turkey, sir, Russia can make Turkey dry, whatever said and done. If he cuts off those
Yeah,
pipelines, Turkey comes to a standstill.
that's
So
okay. But well, fact is
they
that
won't do that to each other.
they won't do. That's a mutual understanding that they have, and they're going to help each other.
So how are Russian and Western arms industries respectively equipped to sustain proxy conflict beyond 2024? And by extension, how would one speculate about India supplying arms to Russia? Well, Pakistan, there's a shipment going across as we speak. So
So,
122 millimeter.
yeah, you see, they are very well equipped to supply. If I may just say that they can sustain. There's nothing going to happen to the war. The military industrial complex on both ends. As of today, Russia is churning out 3 times more than what the Western industrial complex is. The Western industrial complex is still thinking of ramping up. We discussed earlier about 2.5 billions is what has been given, and they want to spend about 18 billions over next
Yeah. Hmm.
5-6 years or 4 years or
6 years.
whatever.
Yeah.
So that no, over 18 years. Sorry, they want. I don't know. I mean, maybe a little confused. 5-6 years or 18 years, but they're thinking about ramping up production. Whereas the Russians are already 3 times. They're working 3 shifts. So
Hmm.
as far as the industry is concerned, industry is quite capable of churning out the wherewithal. Advantage Russia as of today. Tomorrow, God knows. But they can continue the war. My only question to everyone is, you can supply the equipment, but where's the man? Where are you going to find troops to fight
Correct.
with the kind
Training,
of cash?
troops, communication. Means
Yeah, I
in
mean,
fact, I saw a video where a captured Ukrainian guy was so upset. I mean, the first thing in that video he does is throws his walkie-talkie across. So Russian asks him, "What are you doing?" He says, "The damn thing has never worked. I don't want to carry it anymore."
yeah.
So
So it's, you know, uh, when there's no manpower to fight, I mean, you can give him all the equipment. What will he fight for? What will he fight with?
yeah,
चलाएगा कौन उसको? Who's going to fight? The man behind, uh, behind the gun is as important as the gun in front of the man.
true,
You can provide him. If there are guns, but there's nobody to fight. What's going to happen?
true, sir. Global Office 2.0. Russia is getting out of the grain deal and taking control over the Black Sea would lead to another food shortage in the entire world. Would Putin reconsider his decision and get its conditions to meet or more sanctions?
Well, Russia will supply the African nations through other routes. We're just talking about the Ukrainian, the blockade of the Ukrainian grains. Whatever Russia was exporting, that is, Russia was exporting a lot of grain and Russia was exporting a lot of fertilizer through this route. It will continue to export, will continue to provide, but it will not let Ukraine to provide. When you're doing this part, it is Ukraine which has been choked. Russian export of whatever produce and fertilizer, that has not been choked. That will continue. So the shortage, well, will happen. It's just too bad as far as Russia is concerned.
So I'm going to put out two questions, sir. Both are opposite but similar. I mean, it's on the same point but looking at it from two different directions. One is Partha, who says, is US using Zelensky to disarm the EU? And secondly, Hobura Outdoors, who says, it's Europe who destroyed Ukraine, as it was the threat to them also. So they killed them slowly.
Interesting. Ukraine has been used by the United States to weaken Europe. End of story. Ukraine was never a threat to anybody. This
Except for
entire
Donbass and all that stuff.
this is a direct consequence of a desire to weaken the Europeans and to have control over Europe by the Americans. Otherwise, they would have lost it. So it's Ukraine on its own was never a threat to Europe. It would have well been, it could have well not been a part of NATO and have it
Yeah.
and got embraced as a part of EU. The Russians would have had no objection to it.
Putin has said very clearly, you can join anybody but NATO.
So that is it. Georgia happened, South Ossetia and Abkhazia, that all that happened again for the same reason. It happened earlier, that's all. Ukraine was told, don't do it. Well, then there were interests, so that's what has happened. Now, who's got weakened overall? Today, the economy of Europe, of the rest of the countries is down in the
Completely
dumps.
dependent on the Americans, sir.
Yeah. So then the
Absolutely.
dependencies.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Mark says bickering principalities, we should have left them alone to sort out their own problems. World War One to the present.
Absolutely, they should have been left to sort out their own problems. And unfortunately, when the moment somebody starts meddling and guiding and putting in their own interests before, well, these wars only happen then. Trust me, if there is a war between two countries and over a particular issue, if there is a war, there will be a ceasefire, there will be a compromise, and there will be peace for some time, till such time they find another reason to do so. But here there was no war happening. A war was created. A situation was created so that a war takes place.
For no
None
rhyme or
were.
reason, that too, sir.
Yeah.
I mean, what a waste of people. Infected underscore 420 says, do NATO have some deception plan to hurt the Russians when they launch the offensive?
NATO and deception don't seem to be going as of now together, because until unless the NATO themselves get involved, which is not going to happen, and hopefully it should not happen. And let's see as to how much of forces are there on the west of the river and how they are applied. Are they brought east of the river or not? Unfortunately, it's not going to happen because they don't have any air and they don't have any air defense left, and they do not have any, there's
Artillery,
shortage of
nothing.
ammunition and all that. So, in my opinion, at the moment, no such thing seems to exist, if I may just put it.
True. Tejas says Ukraine is the breadbasket of Europe. These Europeans should be ready to pay a heavy price for grains too in the coming years, on top of heavy gas prices.
Very true. What the ex-president of the United States, Donald Trump, made a very interesting statement, and this is an old statement, wherein he says that the United States has put in about 170 billion. This is an old statement, 170 billion, whereas the Europeans have only contributed 20 billion. He says, if I become the president, I will make Europeans pay me for all that I have done for them.
But it's insane, huh? Close to $200 billion has gone into this country.
300. Yeah. Not funny.
It's
Not
ridiculous.
funny.
Kushi says, ask what are the possibilities possible effects on the future of the world and geopolitics, assuming Russia wins the war.
I could speak and speak and speak, and I think this is a discussion which one must have. What if
We
Russia
will
wins the war?
we will take this up.
Yeah, a good one. And trust me, she will take it on a little later. But the future of the world and geopolitics is this is going to be the turning point. The result, the end result of this war, whenever it happens, is going to be the turning point. And major changes, major changes in affiliations are going to take place. Already happening on the economic front. We're looking at de-dollarization. We're talking about uh, the global south assuming a lot of importance. We had this issue on G20 also, then where they wanted the a statement on the Ukraine to be involved in it, to be incorporated in the statement, which is not done, and things like that. So there's going to be a major shift. This is the BRICS coming together, the Quad, the AUKUS, all this happening, and we haven't touched China as yet. China is the main. So there's lots happening, and I think this is a very interesting topic. And thank you for that. We will discuss this in detail.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I must say, sir, today you have got almost 25 comments of appreciation. There are just so many of them here. People talk about, uh, you know, it's just interpretation. Major General Bell is very professional. He has a brilliant mind. My salutes. So many appreciations for you, sir. Jayashi asks, appreciate your insights very much. How will the conflict pan out in the next few years?
Why wait for so many years? This thing is not going to die down. This kind of a rivalry, you know,
It doesn't just vanish.
yeah, it's going to continue.
So, Murugan, thank you so much for your contribution. He says, congratulations to Aadi for being the host of one of the finest, most trustworthy defense news channels. Thank you so much, sir.
That's a fantastic compliment for you, Adi. It's very nice. Good to hear that. Thanks, Murugan.
Thank you so much, sir. Uh, there is, I mean, by the way, there are loads of people who are getting Zelensky to Bollywood as well. Zelensky is considering come to Bollywood, and then somebody says Zelensky comes to Bollywood, then Bollywood on strike. I mean, then of course there is a whole lot of description about how Zelensky will dance with. Oh my God, guys, Govinda, why? I mean,
No, I'll just now that we're talking movies, mm, there's a series in which Zelensky, uh, you know, I'll just give you a gist of that. Maybe I'll try and get the link for the next time. It's a two-part story in which it is described when Zelensky was an actor before he became president. What he was made to do a serial
where he became the
in,
president.
in which he became the president, and he was acting in the similar manner, and how it would pan out. So they say it's called, I think, Agent Zelensky. If you Google Agent Zelensky on YouTube, you'll find this.
Scott Ritter has made this, sir.
Yeah, Scott Writers made it. So Agent Zelensky it's a two-part story. So it'll give you as to how he was planted, perhaps by the people from the other side, and how he was made to twist this entire narrative, how the minds of the Ukrainian public was molded to ensure. And he was, the public was so prepared. They were made to watch this, and the mind was so prepared. People were so well prepared that when it came to elections, he got elected immediately because he has already been, you know, had enacted the role of
My
president.
God.
So just have a look at it. It's quite interesting.
Victoria Nuland some really has a sense of imagination, I must say, sir.
Yeah.
Obura Outdoors, thank you so much for your super sticker. Uh, I won't be able to pronounce your name. Sergi, from a strategic
Okay.
view, when Ukraine falls, would the US be able to claim victory? Thinning of Russia, that's of Russian soldiers. Lindsey Graham baying for Russian blood.
No, USA is very smart. Even before the failure happens, they would be talking Taiwan. Don't worry. They'll shift your attention. Do you talk of Afghanistan today? You don't.
No, no. Salute to
So,
everyone from a soldier. I don't know which army you are from, sir, but salute. If you can tell us, please do. Shaikh, thank you so much for your contribution. Uh, Once and yeah, one more comment, sir, which we will take up. There's just so many comments. I mean, I'm sorry, guys. It's taking me just a little time to sift through because you guys are also making a lot of fun in the middle as well. So, yeah. Okay. Tejas says, did he wear the same green T-shirt in that series too?
no, I don't think so. He wore a suit then. He was a little civilized at that particular time.
But that thing, I mean, you described it last time. It's quite terrible. There are questions about your the trial. I'm sorry. The three times
Trifurcation.
divide of Ukraine. Yeah, I keep. I'm sorry. It's a
Trifurcation.
slip of tongue for me. Trifurcation of Ukraine. There are a lot of questions here, guys. Please watch that show. It's quite a revealing sort of a this thing. But please do watch that show. There are people saying brilliant exposition, sir. Thank you so much. Thank you, Major General Bell. And of course, last comment, Jayashri, we will take yours. Hard to believe that this can rush much longer if Europe and USA are unwilling to fund this further.
Yeah, that's true.
So,
It's all
Hobura
doing.
Outdoor says, I served with Siklai, sir.
Good to know. Well, I'm from the Assam Regiment, so it's a Tagra roam from my side.
Sir, thanks so much. We had a very good crowd today. I think everybody would have enjoyed your previous talks as well. Guys, do go back because we've been covering Ukraine pretty much in detail. We've been getting some international attention as well, where people have recognized what we've been trying to do here, and it's good to see that, and it's good to actually have you guys uh, interact with the channel so well. Thank you so much, all of you, sir. A special thanks for you for your analysis and the time that you take out for this effort. And trust you me, sir, we learn so much from this. It's a live war happening in front of us, and what better an opportunity to learn from a warrior himself as to how this thing is going to pan out. So I am grateful and thank you so much. See you next Thursday, sir.
All right. Thank you very much. Thank you, everybody. You guys take care. Have a great week ahead. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Jai Hind. Thanks, guys. Don't forget to like before you all sign off. Jai Hind.